Good afternoon and welcome to today's masterclass on supercharging your healthcare marketing with data-driven creativity. My name's Darren Low and I'm the founder and managing director of Logic+Magic, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about how we can do better, do faster and do stronger in healthcare marketing, particularly in how we use data in our marketing, and talk a little bit about some best practice for integrating data-driven insights, and specifically touch on something that's almost like the pinnacle of data-driven marketing today, in my opinion, which is addressable TV, and where Sky and the Sky AdSmart platform have been leading the way in quite a long time. Why should you care and why should you listen to me? Well, I'm getting on a bit now. I've been in the agency world since 1997. In data strategy and sort of creative agencies. I'm an agency founder. I've been working with healthcare brands since 1997. A little company, my first client called Pharmacia in Upjohn. They had a product you may know called Nicorette, subsumed by Pfizer. I've worked in the UK and on brands internationally, from sort of small independent healthcare brands to PLCs. And that's included, a few names you may know and a few names that you may have never seen before, but certainly a couple of interesting brands there over the years, from prescription all the way through to retailers. So what do we mean by data-driven creativity? So I think it's really important to sort of frame that, because we're going to be talking a lot about this today. Data, it's a tool. It's as simple as that. And we can use data in many forms to help us better define and better guide us to creative solutions to business problems. That doesn't have to be limited to producing a piece of creative, but it can help us frame how we solve the problem creatively. Now, research and data can be very, very precise, whereas creative thinking is more lateral and broad and offers different perspectives and solutions to the problem. It can also mean much better creative campaigns that drive change in consumer behavior. But what we shouldn't be is a slave to the data, and the skill is understanding the nuance. Now, a slightly predictable Steve Jobs picture, but marketers for years have been regurgitating that Apple would have never made the iPhone if they'd have researched it. And it might be true, depending on how the research was designed. But the point is this: context matters. And that's the industry, market conditions, and consumer behavior. And they all influence how we should use data as marketers. And balance is key. An over-reliance on data can really stifle creativity, while ignoring data entirely can lead to misguided solutions and a fail in our marketing campaigns. So flexibility is crucial. Different campaigns require different approaches. Sometimes data leads creativity, and other times creativity leads data. And sometimes they even deviate and meet themselves back at the end, and by happy coincidence have arrived at the right place. But data is a tool, and you need to be sure you've got a master craftsman handling the tool, else you run the risk of ignoring what the data is telling you, or even worse, not interpreting it correctly, including what the data isn't telling you. And more we see an over-reliance and an obsession with data in our industry, and perhaps forget that data doesn't have all the answers. So why is data and creativity so important in healthcare marketing? Well, there's an urgency right now for us as brands, as brand owners, as marketeers, as advertisers, to stand out, to differentiate, or to die. And as an agency, we've worked across a lot of different therapy areas over the years: prescription, over-the-counter, medical devices, as well as services and care, and also with major retailers, the likes of Supercharge. And what's staggering is the lack of standout, the lack of distinctiveness, and the lack of creativity in both what brands say and how they engage. Effectively, we're in a world where all part of the set, and blending in becomes a slow and painful death. And let's just get one thing straight. Blending in is for beige brands, and nobody remembers a beige brand. And nobody wants to be a brand manager or a marketing manager of a brand that's beige. And hopefully you're here to dominate and to stand out. And so far you're in a league of your own, because very few people in the space seem to want to do that. And you don't have to do the Benetton shock style ads of the 80s to disrupt. In fact, the bar is so low in most areas, you just have to be better than the next guy. So don't think of disruption as a buzzword. Think of it as your new mantra. And be the brand that everyone notices for the right reasons, because differentiation isn't just about survival. It's actually being king of the hill. So you should be ready to disrupt and make sure that you're noticed. I'll give you an example of how creativity starts to disrupt and starts to change. So there's a great example from China where there's 100 million Chinese suffer from COPD, which is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and only 7% of those are properly diagnosed. So that's a significant data point in terms of a huge impact on the health system, a huge impact on people's lives, and a huge opportunity for a brand to lead and to do better. So in China, GSK partnered with the Chinese Association of Chest Physicians, that's a word I can never say, and Tencent to develop an innovative mobile app that allowed users to check their lung function simply by blowing into their smartphone's microphone. So this real creative use of technology brought COPD screening to millions, driving awareness in an impactful, memorable way. And they did it using the Chinese art of blow painting as part of the UI and design in a really engaging way. So this is really sort of creative use of an understanding of data plus an understanding of technology, and using something where we're harnessing the power of creativity, not through that traditional advertising route, but by innovatively using technology to engage consumers directly with their health and making a significant impact where traditional methods have fallen short. Now, this campaign was a phenomenal success, we're told, reaching over 11 million people, with 430,000 people completing the lung function tests. And the combination of creativity and technology led to widespread awareness and early detection of COPD that demonstrated the power of creative thinking that can be brought in healthcare marketing. And they're doing it using a device that's in our hands all day and every day. So very, very smart. But sometimes data can be a bit of a double-edged sword. And as a previous life, I used to be head of data strategy. So I know a little bit about data, and I know a little bit about some of the strengths and some of the vulnerabilities. And when it works really, really well, it is absolutely your best mate. It can fuel your fire. And if you get it wrong, it is your worst enemy, because it can chain you down. But it can spark an absolute revelation in how you work and how you operate. And we've used data phenomenally successfully over the years to separate categories, pull brands apart, and to spark creative thinking. With train of thought thinking, you get to really interesting abstract hypotheses while you're looking at the data. And that's about having a creative mind while being able to explore data. So not bringing analysis to come back to you with an answer to an exam question, but more letting it flow, letting them dig, letting them look into different things. Otherwise, you get up in this data paralysis. And after that, the brief is unclear, the creativity is frozen, and the answers are generally beige. So you should really be using data to set your ideas alight, not to box them in. We're not accountants after all, we are marketers. So we need to use that data to spark some real magic, not just shuffle the numbers around. And we need to be better and how and when we use data. It's fantastic for targeting, for example, but it can be really sort of less great for creative briefings sometimes. So we need to be really selective in what and how we use data. And what we have is the human factor in here. So data is great. It's always backwards looking. Humans are never backwards looking. They're always going to do something different tomorrow. Humans are gloriously unpredictable, incredibly irrational, and that's where the magic lies. For us, that's where, in the right hands, data can be transformed. It can be put to one side, it can be considered, and then it can be used to do something amazing. There's order in chaos if you know where to look. So you should never fight it. You should embrace it, and then you should use it to your advantage. Because as we all know, emotion beats logic every day of the week. Irrational behavior is around us all the time. And we know that from years and years of experience, people buy on emotion, not logic. So if you're trying to reason your way into their hearts, you're doing it wrong. That's why we should all be turning logic into magic, not creating unmemorable features and benefits advertising. And what's worse than this is the media is generally the biggest cost to you as a brand that you have to bear. So make sure the creative you buy deserves the media you're shelling out for. Dave Trott wisely said quite a long time ago, great creative costs no more than poor creative. And unfortunately, my friends, we're in time of really poor creative, both in quantity and quality. And when I say poor, what I really mean is boring. Most ads are boring. This isn't me saying it. There's plenty of research, something out recently put together by System 1. 52% of TV ad viewers in the UK feel neutral to seeing a TV ad. Can you imagine that as a marketer? You've gone through that whole process to deliver a creative campaign and the consumer was nonplussed, non-moved. And we know that emotion is what builds mental connection. So if there's no emotional response, there was no mental connection, that was a complete waste of everybody's money. That means they felt nothing at all. So no happiness, no surprise, no anger, not even disdain. And that means you just wasted your media budget. Now, in the healthcare space, we see this so much. I think because we're in a very regulated space that it can constrain our creativity, or we believe it can constrain our creativity, and we let that myth continue through our businesses and through our day-to-day. So, I mean, let's just take a couple of minutes to compare a couple of ads in the supplement space. So, regulated, but a bit more flexibility than perhaps a prescription medication. And I'm going to play you a couple of ads and just want you to think about how you feel when you see them.
Do you want to feel your best every day, but lack energy? Try 7C's Omega-3 and multivitamins. A unique duo pack formulation combining a multivitamin tablet with high-strength vitamin B12 for energy release and vitamins C and D to support your immune system. And because your body can't produce Omega-3 from scratch, Omega-3 has been added to support your brain and heart. Aim to feel your best every day and support your whole body health. Try 7C's Omega-3 and multivitamins.
The easy-to-swallow one-a-day food supplement MacuShield with lutein, mesozeaxanthin.
It's lutein, mesozeaxanthin, and zeaxanthin.
Measly zebra panther. Got it?
Mesozeaxanthin.
MacuShield with lutein, musty, sexy anthill. Many zealous Zambians.
Okay, I think we got that
Misty
covered.
in Southampton.
We can just edit around that, can't we?
Minty South African. Find the MacuShield range in opticians, pharmacies, and available in most boot stores on 3 for 2. Search online to see if Macclesfield is right for you.
It's MacuShield.
Yep, nailed it.
So that was just a 60-second ad break in the middle of this session, but I'm certainly not going to lead the witness on this one, but I'm pretty confident that of the 2 ads you saw, one of them had a more emotional response. Those emotions that we really want to trigger, the ones that build the mental pathways, the memories, fear being the one that's often, the biggest part of our brain to remember things, but joy and euphoria also up there, and humor is kind of a subset of joy if you bend a bit of behavioral psychology in the right direction. We sat there and we watched an ad about some multivitamins that gave us lots of features and benefits. And then I don't know if you noticed, but on the ad for MacuShield, it didn't tell you anything about the product. It didn't tell you anything why you should buy it. And that's quite unusual. And that's in an ad that's a pretty low awareness brand and in a very low awareness category, eye health supplements, so a subset of the vitamins and minerals section. But you may be surprised about what happens next. So what we saw with the campaign was that TV drove sales phenomenally. And we saw about a 45% uplift in sales in the 12-week period in the TV regions where the TV ran. It was a controlled experiment, so we had the borders of ITTV regions as our test areas, so we could measure the impact of TV versus no TV. But not only that, there was a second experiment we ran at the same time using direct mail on top of the TV. In this case, it was a door drop, and it ran alongside the TV to amplify performance. And that doubled the impact in the region where that experiment ran. And we believe this was for 2 reasons. Firstly, the direct mail talked about the product, the features, the benefits, so we could be a little bit more open. The direct mail had more value in the consumer's eyes than the TV. The direct mail had more value in the consumer's eyes than an email or a digital ad. There's perceived additional value given by consumers, given the costs involved, to something that comes through their letterbox that makes them feel that the brand wanted them to see this, so they give it more attention. And the higher cost media typically has a higher impact than cheap media. But what's more interesting to me is the consumer response to the ad. They saw the ad, they bought the product, and the TV ad didn't even say what it was for. And there was a reason for that. The TV ad couldn't say what the product was for. It was part of the problem, and this is where data was really, really helpful to it. The problem we ended up with the brand was that there was a need to grow it, and Clearcast, who, for any of you who have been involved in TV advertising, are a pre-regulator to stop you getting in trouble, and you have to go through a sort of a detailed process to make sure your brand can stand up. And Clearcast decided that the brand name MacuShield was an unsubstantiated claim and wouldn't allow us to run the type of advertising that we were planning. And the solution was in part in small print. The brand name is a registered trademark, and they conceded that they would allow us to run an ad, an availability ad, i.e. available in boots. So can you imagine an ad that just talked about MacuShield, it's available in boots, would be quite boring. So that's where data came in handy to spark the solution. As an agency, we've been working as the lead agency on the brand for about 1.5 years at the time, and we're working across digital, web, brand, creative, and we could see everything. And the brand had been featured in as an unnamed brand in a BBC Trust Me, I'm a Doctor episode. And at the same time, we ran a whole bunch of online activity and paid activity to boost performance. And the search results, the ingredients went absolutely wild following that Trust Me, I'm a Doctor episode. Those ingredients, lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin, and they're kind of words that have a cadence, and they sparked the creative idea, because if we can't talk about the product and we can't say why, at least we can have a bit of fun with what's in it. So we went back and we weaved data into the story. We've got a great consumer profile. We knew where they fit, we knew what the data was, and we used that data to spark the creative of the TV ad. We know people were searching for those words, so why not make the TV ad about them? But we wanted to be memorable, so why not to make the TV ad funny? We even had people complaining about the TV ad, not because there was anything misleading with it, but just because it irritated them a little bit, because they kept seeing it and they didn't know why. But it was a really interesting response. And so we used all of that data about who was searching to fuel the creativity, but we also used it to help support the media targeting. We used our experience in developing the right models to build the right households, their letterboxes and their TV sets, to make sure we minimised waste and maximised impact. And what we ended up with was a great TV ad, with many zealous Zambians and a 45% uplift in sales, which I'm sure you'll agree is a pretty healthy performance for a TV campaign. So coming back to using data to supercharge growth, we need to stand out to be different. We need to think creatively at how we solve problems, and we shouldn't think of the outliers as things to discard. We should even focus, maybe even obsess about the irrational and revel in it. Consumer behaviour, as we saw with MacuShield using their search behaviour made for an irrational TV ad. Imagine presenting that without anything behind it to say why you've done that, but the idea probably still would have delivered. But as people responsible for brands and brand growth, features and benefits don't cut it, especially when you try and cram 23 features into a single message. That old thought of the single-minded proposition seems to have been lost under the dearth of bloody awful social and digital advertising delivered at scale ad nauseum, not by proper creative development, but people who learn to use a few tools and like to crank a handle. And sometimes that's wasting your media money on testing infinite combinations of things they thought up. But you as brands have got a huge opportunity in the healthcare space to win. Focusing on reducing consumers' anxiety and uncertainty. So you need to understand the journey, the white space, the touch points, all the logical things. And don't forget, they're often hard decisions, and we can help and guide, whether it's for well-being, whether it's on prescription, or where we're supporting the patient choice agenda. But we need to put the consumer heart at the heart of the brand value proposition, and then everything really starts to fly as we become an incredibly consumer-centric organisation. And if you really want to go faster, think about experience. It can be an absolute game changer. If you think back to that example from GSK, they made use of something we all have in our hands all of the time, our phones, and they simplified the message, they simplified the access, they created a very simple solution. So simplify everything and focus on that consumer experience. Think about how people actually engage with your product or service. Not what you think about how they do it, but what they actually do and what they actually say. And then if we show up where consumers are and show up when we need it, we'll start to win more. But what about data-driven power-ups? So we're talking about how we turbocharge, supercharge our brand performance with data-driven creativity. So we've talked a little bit about how data can shape creativity. Data can also get in the way of creativity. But what we also need to think about is data is just a tool. It's not the holy grail. So let's always keep that in mind. And it's only as good as the people who wield it. But we've seen we can use data to help frame problems and spark creative solutions. We can, and we absolutely should use data to connect brands to consumer wherever possible, as that's where we drive efficiency as marketers. Our industry has an obsession with data and often glosses over the data it doesn't know about, and this can impact creativity and constrain us. It also means that we over-rely on it for the wrong reasons. From a media and targeting perspective, sometimes we do need to go narrow and sometimes we need to go wide. As experienced practitioners, we need to be better at making those decisions. Calpol is a great example of a brand that built near universal knowledge and understanding, even in those that don't have kids. The salience of the brand is huge, and for years it was the leading brand in the entire category. And they knew which tools to use, and they knew when to use it. And they need to do it even when the consumer isn't the market and where it's appropriate for your brand. For Calpol, there was probably a thought at a time of, well, you're either in the market or you're going to be in the market, or you've been in the market and you're now a grandparent. Where we need to be more focused, data can help us with absolute laser focus from a media planning and buying perspective. Where you've got a particular set of dynamics, direct targeted media is your friend. So is absolute precision. I'm also pretty sure, although I've got absolutely no data to back this one up, but anyone in marketing under the age of about 35 doesn't really know anything about direct marketing unless they happen to have worked in financial services, charity fundraising, or a catalogue shopping type business. And this is all down to the 2008 crash, which saw a lot of direct marketing programs pause, stop, or change, and then get replaced with less effective digital campaigns that are headline price cheaper, but impact value lower. Those direct marketers had a lot of skills back in those days in data, in modeling, in segmentation, and targeting. And all those skills can be leveraged today across a plethora of channels, from TV to direct marketing to digital. Basically, big screen, small screen, and letterbox combined in a targeted way. And if you leverage the impact of multi-channel campaigns, even to a niche audience, the consumer, who doesn't know that they're the only person you're talking to, feels like you're a huge brand, you're everywhere, and you are for them, you're in their corner. And if you build that emotional connection through really creative messaging and advertising, then you will be for them. So they have no idea that Betty next door didn't see the same TV ad that they saw, get the same piece of DM that they got, or see the same targeted ads online. And a big asset to do this is with our friends at Sky, who we've worked with for the last 8 or 9 years. They're light years ahead in targeted data-driven TV advertising. And a lot of people talk about TV is dead. It really isn't. It is just changing. And I can sit here and give you pages and pages of data on the performance of elements of TV and how it's changing, but check out ThinkBox's website. There's plenty there, and there's plenty to inform and educate. But Sky are light years ahead. And not only they're the largest player in TV advertising, linear TV advertising, but they also win the addressable market. And TV, don't forget, is still the most trusted medium to deliver messages. And the fact that now I can land my messages to people who are right fit and in market with zero wastage is epic for brands that need to be really targeted with their messaging. So Sky have got over 2,000 data points, plus the ability to use the brand's own first-party data, which means we can be incredibly creative in developing healthcare solutions that drive consumers towards your brand. So I've talked a little bit about addressable TV. It's been around for coming up for a decade, and it's continually evolving. In its simplest form, it's data-driven TV advertising. So as a brand, I want to reach a certain type of consumer. So let's say buyers of cruises. I've got some access to 2,000 or so data points. So I'd probably be looking at something like MasterCard data, blending that with some travel data, and Sky will build me a really nice audience, and I can collaborate with them on what that audience looks like. And then what happens is that my TV ad is served up to them while they're watching TV, whether that's live or on catch-up, on the programming that they choose, so we don't have to worry about whether it's sports, whether it's prime time, whether it's movies, whether it's the headline series on Sky at the time. Your ad is served when the consumer's made their choice about when and how they're watching TV. And while their entire street may see an ad for Walker's Crisps on the Sky linear ad break in the middle of The Walking Dead, Pam and Mick will see my ad for my cruise company because they're my audience. But if they skip or flick, we don't even have to pay for it, which can change how we make ads as well, because from a production perspective, the ad has to play out for 75% before Sky will charge us, which means we can still land a brand message in that first part of the ad. And the beauty of this, I'm not serving up ads to people that will never buy my product, brand, or service. Plus, I can connect online advertising to this to reinforce my brand, which means I can follow them online. A bit stalky, but very possible. And from a buyer's perspective, it's not bought as a TVR in the traditional TV sense. It's bought as a CPM model, so much more aligned to your digital advertising buys that you're probably very familiar with. To give you an example, I use TV as part of the growth strategy for Ashton Parsons, which is a traditional herbal remedy, so all the same challenges as any other OTC brand when it comes to regulations and being featured on TV. We partnered with Sky to build a model using Boots Advantage card data. It's one of the really rich, helpful data sets for any brand available in a retail space. There's also club card data from Tesco and Nectar data. But we use the data in such a way as to target in-market consumers because we didn't have the biggest budgets in the world. Basically, we built a model of mums and mums-to-be. And in that space, the market's always shifting as new mums-to-be enter the market every day. You don't really want to just go on a burst once a year. You want to be as close to an always-on strategy as possible. And to do that, we blended the more expensive TV advertising with a whole bunch of digital advertising and partnership advertising. So we had always on, and then we had a frequency of TV to keep the brand top of mind. And what was great with this brand is that we managed to take it from a single-digit share to category leader, knocking off Bonjela in about 5 years, and TV was a big part of that growth strategy. Using as much data and creativity as we could muster, we really sort of embraced the Sky world with the Sky AdSpark world. And that's a very, very quick touch on the power that targeting has, and it can be layered up with lots of other media to make sure your brand appears to be everywhere the consumer is. Sky AdSmart can be a really cost-effective way of getting high-value attention for a low cost of entry. The media threshold is just £3,000, and as part of an integrated campaign, it can be incredibly effective to improve brand awareness, brand regard, and overall brand appeal. And for me, this is where we start to see the best side of data. It's absolutely brilliant in building strategy. We dive deep, we speak to consumers, we look at market data, we understand trends, we start to shape where we think the brand can be and what the creative can be. And it can be really helpful in sparking creative solutions. As I showed you with the MacuShield TV ad, it can even help really spark the solution where you've got a major problem and you're not supposed to be on TV. And it's phenomenal when it's used right to support connecting your now brilliant creative with the people you want to see it. So here we really start to see data and creativity coming together in different ways and different uses, particularly for media, thinking of data as your wingman, using it to amplify standout creative. And where you can be precise and see the magic you can make happen. But remember, most of all, be bold, stand out. Do it not for the sake of standing out, but for the good of your brand. So we've got great ideas. We've got well-targeted media. And what else is there? Well, today, my friends, we're in an age where aesthetics really mean something. They really matter. We're surrounded by content that's bland, that's beige, and that's plentiful. So make yours beautiful. Think a little more about production values. Think a little more about quality of the work we do rather than the quantity we put out. We all really know as marketers that repetition is what works. We don't need new content every day of the week. We need brilliant content that lasts, that endures, and that is most of all can be remembered. So attention is a real currency. So we need to keep it, grab it, own it, and not necessarily think about everything as an immediate sale. It's about making them remember you for the long term. Pretty sure we can all remember ads that we saw years ago that were phenomenal for different reasons. And then with your beautiful production, creativity is that edge. We're in a sea of sameness. It's not difficult to stand out. You just have to be a little bit better than the next guy. So use the data well, use it right, use it to drive the change that you want in your market, with your brand, and for your leadership. Because what happens if you don't change? So what? Well, there's only one certainty here. You will get left behind. It might not be today, but it will be soon. And it may be sooner than you think. And regrets cost you way more than the boldest of risks. If you think about our consumers, they've got really short memories. You can screw up a campaign entirely and you'll be back. But at least you tried. At least you tried to do something different. At least you tried to get away from the boring, the beige, the normal, the predictable. Think about our politicians. They bounce back from major media failures where they've been in the headlines for weeks and months and the world hates them. And then 4 years later, they're back running for president. And as marketers, we need to stop being comfortable. We need to put away our slippers. We need to start getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because if you're uncomfortable in what you're doing, if you're cautious about every time you have to go up to the leadership to present work that you know hand on heart is what you need to be doing, it means you're probably doing the right things. But also, don't risk your job for it. You've got to bring your team with you. You've got to be a leader for change in the organization. So are you ready for change? It's the big question. And it's easy to not change. It's easy to do what we've always done and get what we always got. Although you don't get what you've always got anymore. You get a bit less and a bit less and a bit less because somebody else is already there and doing it and changing and doing different. And your consumers are certainly ready for change. And it's really important to believe that and to understand that. And even though they're not necessarily telling you that, if you ask them, because we rarely do, they're absolutely wanting it. And we see new brands emerge and disrupt categories day in and day out. So what does that mean as marketers? What do we do next? Well, we've summarized this into an 8 steps plan for success. And this is a really important plan that you can take away. First of all, differentiate or die. It's the mantra that we need to put over our doors. If we don't differentiate, we will be dead. We're in a radically fast changed environment. We're seeing political, economic, environmental change. We're seeing technology change how we work, and it impacts everything we do as brands. Make sure you use data, use it well, use the best of it you can get, but don't worship it. It's not the Messiah. It's not the Holy Grail. It's just a really, really helpful tool if you wield it well. Don't be afraid. Embrace those bold ideas. Do different. Stand out. We see too many briefs where people feel like they want to be part of the set. If you're part of the set, it just means we could slap any of your competitors' logos on your creative. You're not memorable. And simplify your messaging. Don't try and cram in 23 features. Try and give a consumer a single-minded message of why they should buy your brand, ask for your brand, prioritize your aesthetics, look good. It's really worth it. It can be the 5% difference. And then everything that you do it consistently. Don't chop, don't change, unless it's not working, of course, but continue to show up consistently all day, everywhere that you need to reach your consumers. And then thinking about technology, leverage it smartly. But most importantly, don't fear failure. Fear regret. Don't think about what I did wrong. Think about, that was good. I learned something from it, rather than, I really wish we'd done a campaign with a bit more balls. So we've talked about consumers. They're ready for your change. Are you ready for it? And can your organization deliver it? As marketers, we're often frustrated by the organization we work for, as they don't seem to want change, but they still want growth. And it's really hard to have one without the other. And sometimes the one is in the way of the other. So we've been developing a change readiness model. If we're running a sort of transformation program with a set of key questions that can start to assess whether you really should push it as a marketer, or could it be the end of your time in your organization? So right now, it's a simple set of questions that we can engage a leadership team with, and it might be really helpful for you to take away if you're wanting, struggling, or considering how you change your output in the context of the wider business. So if you're ready to lead the change, these simple questions might help you. Are you willing to break from tradition? We see this time and time again, and the answer often is no. Do you use data as a tool, not a crutch? If you're using it at all, that's brilliant. If you're relying on it as a crutch, there's some change required there. Do people really understand who you are? Is your brand's message simple and clear? Can you prioritize aesthetics in your business? Do you have the time, the focus, and the budget to make everything look amazing? Do you ensure consistency across campaigns? If you're an organization where your marketing teams are siloed, quite often we'll see digital doing one thing, social doing another, brands doing something else. They need to come together and be one. It can't be different because the consumer is one consumer. And is your path to purchase seamless? Now in healthcare, that path may be through a healthcare professional. It may be through a digital channel. It may be through the store. It depends where you are. But that path to purchase needs to be as friction-free as it possibly can. With targeting, are you targeting broadly enough? Should you be wider? Should you be narrower? You really need to think about this. And are you willing to disrupt your own market and be the change that causes your growth to go supercharged? And if you're open to change and you're starting to go through that process, how quickly does the organization then act? If you're bringing a new way to the business, does it then require 3 years to go through a process internally before anything new comes out? By that time, everything else has moved on and the world has changed. And the biggest question of all, are you prepared to embrace failure to succeed? If the answer is no, then stop, go home, hide under the duvet and do something else. Now that just leaves me to thank you for joining me this afternoon in this session. There is a Q&A, but I'm going to leave you with one thought. And it's a really different one, and it's actually from the automotive world, and it's more health and safety than health. Although this campaign was developed by Volvo, it was deeply connected to health and safety, with Volvo aiming to reduce accidents involving cyclists, which is a key health issue in urban areas and has a huge impact on the healthcare system wherever you are. So Volvo created, their solution was actually to create a product called Life Paint, which was a reflective spray that cyclists could apply to their clothes or bikes, making them more visible to drivers at night. The spray is invisible at daylight, but it's highly reflective in the dark. And the campaign promoted safety without the usual scare tactic. Instead, it offered a practical, creative solution that directly benefited the target audience. Life Paint was an instant success. The first batch sold out within days. It generated loads of media coverage and social media buzz, and it helped position Volvo back as the leader in safety and innovation. And it stood out because it's a brilliant example of how creativity can extend beyond traditional advertising to create product that not only promotes health and safety, but also reinforces brand values in a memorable way. So in summary, don't wait, transform now. Innovation isn't going to wait for you. Let's make the extraordinary happen. So thank you for this afternoon. We've got a couple of thoughts here. One is, why would I want to put my healthcare brand on TV? It's a great question. And for some brands, it's not relevant. If you're in a niche therapy area, TV isn't necessarily going to help you. But if you're in a slightly broader area, or you're looking to build and lead your category, build awareness for your category, almost to become a campaigning brand. So you're actually helping not just your consumer, your market, but also the rest of society understand and support. Then TV can be brilliant, and that can be broad or it can be narrow. You can also use TV in a way where you reinforce and you engage with perhaps lapsed consumers. So if you're a direct-to-consumer healthcare brand, for example, all of that data can be lifted and brought into the AdSmart model, and you can elevate your brand's presence in front of your consumer that way. So there are many reasons you could consider using TV. If you're selling medical engineering devices to a hospital, which I used to do a long time ago with Siemens, TV is perhaps not your friend, but there are other very intelligent data-driven solutions there. Final question we've got here is, what do I do and where do I start? Well, auditing where you are is really helpful. Having an objective third party come in and give everything a bit of a poke can perhaps give you the safety and security that you need, in that your thinking is in the right place, the need to change is in the right place, and what can come next then is given some sort of support from somebody else, some courage for you, and some partners to work with you to take you on your way. So that wraps up our session this afternoon. Thank you very much for attending, and I hope you enjoy our forthcoming masterclasses that are available on our LinkedIn page and updated on a regular basis.